This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. We are glad to have you with us. I am joined now by Mike Preston, Executive Director of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. You've had a good week and you've had a bad week.
Hey, you take the good with the bad. Unfortunately, it was rough yesterday learning about the Kimberly-Clark closure in Conway. We kind of had an idea this might be coming, but it always stings when you do get that news for sure. But on the flip side of that, our project activity is up. There's a ton of interest in Arkansas. Our economy is really strong, and I got a lot of confidence of where we're going.
Well, we will get to some of those other things. So let's talk about Kimberly-Clark in particular. First of all, you guys fought fiercely to keep that facility here. It's been here for 50 years. In Conway. Why do you think you lost out? What did Wisconsin offer that Arkansas couldn't or wouldn't offer?
You said it. It's a 50-year facility here, very strong performing, always just a great facility, tremendous workforce. So it was just that much more of a blow when you know it's coming. So we fought hard. Our team working obviously very closely with the governor, with the Conway Chamber of Commerce. We had local legislators. Senator Jason Raper was very involved in it. Multiple conversations and reaches out to the company. We even had a very aggressive incentive package of our own on the table. And this is for purely retention. You don't see that a lot. You'll see a retention with an expansion, but this is purely retention project. So we obviously evaluate all of our projects for a return on investment, and we were able to justify a very aggressive incentive package. What ultimately I think it came down to, though, is that Wisconsin put $30 million on the table, far short of what they had originally proposed, closer to $100 million, but still $30 million to hold on to those jobs. And it was also because they were able to renegotiate their union contract for a lower wage rate with the union. So that was our two big pieces. And then Kimberly-Clark is a Wisconsin company. That's where it was founded. And had this plant gone away, essentially the manufacturing for Kimberly-Clark in Wisconsin would be no more. So there was a little bit of that legacy that I think that they needed to hold on to and keep that identity.
Wisconsin is where Oshkosh is as well. So Wisconsin may not be your favorite state to visit anytime soon.
I won't be pulling for the Green Bay Packers anytime soon. Don't worry about that.
Well, let's talk about this whole we call it an arms race with economic incentives a lot, where you do have a state like Wisconsin putting $30 million, getting the reduction in the union wages there. You guys had an economic development incentive package that you put forward. There are limitations on what you can do to get that return on investment. Can Arkansas afford to be that choosy, or do we have to be that choosy lest you can't justify it to someone higher up?
Right. Well, every year I have to go in front of the legislature and talk about the projects that we've done and what our return on investment is. So when we look at a return on investment for an economic development project, we knew that every dollar that we're putting in, that's a taxpayer dollar that we're putting into a project. So we want to make sure that taxpayer is seeing a return. So we do our return on investment on tax dollars out versus tax dollars revenue back into the state. So it has to be, make sense for Arkansas. It has to be a company that we, see that there's going to be a return on investment. The return that we are seeing is jobs, it's wages, it's investment by the company. So we weigh that impact very closely when we're making those decisions. The good thing is, though, like we said, we're in a good position right now. We don't have to, chase after low-dollar jobs and bring them into the state. We can go after these higher-paying jobs that really diversify our economy. Granted, a company like Kimberly-Clark, those are really good-paying jobs. It hurts to lose those jobs. It's going to be a blow to the region. But I'm confident that we're going to be able to find places for those workers so they can transition those great skills that they already have learned over the past how many ever years they've been working there into one of the companies that we have in Arkansas, or one that maybe we're recruiting to the state.
Let's talk about what you are recruiting to the state. I know you're never going to give me names. You're under some sort of formal legal agreement to not do that. But I have heard from my sources in economic development circles that the pipeline is very full in Arkansas right now. One of my sources tells me this may be the busiest December he has ever been involved in, and that spans several decades.
Well, Roby, you have good sources. I'm always impressed at the information you're able to get. But in economic development, being able to work confidentially on these projects is really key for us, because companies don't want others to know what their plans are and they're looking. So we try to keep that information as quiet as we can until a project is announced. And once it's announced, and obviously we're going to be completely open and transparent about that. But without going into too much detail, I'd say, your source is pretty right on. We've got a full pipeline. We've got a lot of people interested in our state right now. And that's a product of, I think, the hard work the last 3.5 years that the governor, that team at AEDC have really put it into proactively marketing Arkansas, letting them know that we're open for business. They look at all the things that the legislature has been able to accomplish in the last couple of years. They see the direction we're moving in. They see that there's now an interest in Arkansas, and they want to be a part of that. So our pipeline is full. Our challenge is going to be able to find the sites that we need and the workers to fill those jobs.
Maybe you could give me a few contours on this, because I do respect the privacy that you have to honor in these NDA agreements, these non-disclosure agreements over there. Do some of these projects in the pipeline, do they fit in certain categories? Are they manufacturing? Are they advanced manufacturing? Are they high tech? Are they service oriented? I mean, what can you tell me is kind of really seems to be percolating?
To me, a selling point about Arkansas is how diverse our economy really is, depending if you're in Northwest Arkansas versus Central Arkansas, or the steel industry in Northeast Arkansas, or the timber industry in South Arkansas. And the projects we see in our pipeline, they're across the board. They're
across the state?
They're across the board, they're across the state, they're across industry. And that's a good thing, that we're hitting those targeted sectors that you just talked about. They're manufacturing, they're technology companies, there's financial services involved. I mean, there's all kinds of, great industries represented throughout the state. Our pipeline really reflects that right now.
All right. Well, you got a legislative session coming up. There's going to be a little bit of government reorganization.
That's
right.
right.
I think would put your agency at the top of a new Department of Commerce here. What's on your session agenda?
Well, we're very excited about the governor's plans for transformation. We think this is long overdue in the state, and we're excited about what that's going to mean for economic development and really bolstering our efforts to that next level. So we'll be very engaged in that effort and how that works. So we're trying to keep our agenda fairly narrow, making sure we're supporting that. We're supporting the tax cuts that the governor and the legislature have now proposed. Obviously, if I can take that information, we're passing a new tax cut, I can go sell that all over the country and all over the world. Look at what Arkansas is doing. We continue to move in the right direction, cutting taxes, but we're doing it in a smart, sensible way, that we're not, getting our budget out of whack. We're doing it incrementally. Companies like to see that. They like to see that stability. So I'm excited about this upcoming session. A lot to get done, but we're going to be right there with them.
All right. Lastly, let me ask you, there's a new NAFTA now, and we still have a trade war going on with China. There's been a pause, I suppose, but there's not very many details on that. How's that impacting things?
The trade war with China, it's hurt. We've done a lot of good in China the last couple of years, trying to recruit foreign direct investment from China into Arkansas. So these are Chinese companies who are looking to actually invest in Arkansas and set up manufacturing.
Has it killed any project?
It has not, I'd say, kill any project. It's certainly slowed a couple of them down. They're waiting to see what happens with it. Other projects are still ongoing. It's maybe put a delay on them, but nothing is, I'd say, just killed because of that. Some have been hindered, but we're continuing to work with the administration, work with our Chinese counterparts to make sure that these projects come to fruition. What it has done is our ability to recruit new projects from China into the state.
Between Mexico and Canada, though, there's not really that much change in the new agreement, to be honest with you, from what I've seen and read and we've reported on.
No, there was definitely some updates that were probably needed, and I think the agreement allows us to continue to trade with our two biggest trading partners, and I think some of the wage concessions that you see in Mexico, I think that might help us, where before companies were looking to go at Mexico because, especially in the automobile supply chain, they could get the wages so much cheaper. Now there's going to be that wage requirement in there where a certain amount of percentage of the parts that touches the car has to be at least $16 an hour. That's going to help us maybe lure a few more jobs back to the U.S.
All right, he's Mike Preston with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission for the time being, maybe the Department of Commerce at some point in time. So good to see you as always.
Thanks for being
here.
Appreciate it.
All right. We're back with more right after this.